The Sternritter are one of the most prominent antagonistic groups within the story of Bleach, and it's not just because there's 26 of them, but because each of them have incredibly fun personalities and some very absurd broken abilities. Along with their king Yhwach, they are the main villains of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and a great number of them get some time to shine at different points within the story arc. But because there are so many of them, it's difficult for everybody to get a lot of screen time, so we never have a full chance to get to appreciate how amazing some of these characters really are. So in this video, I want to shine a spotlight onto the Sternritters by ranking who I believe to be the top 5 best Sternritters. And when I say best, I'm ranking them not only in their power, but in their general role within the story, which takes into account their personalities, character growth, the fights that they take part in, and lastly the overall contribution that they give to the actual storyline. So without wasting any more time, let's get into my ranking of the top 5 best Sternritters. Before the video begins, only 12% of the people who watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. In the number 5 spot, we have Gerard Valkyrie. He's the man who needs no introduction, making his debut appearance within chapter 549. He's the self-proclaimed fastest, strongest, and toughest Sternritter, and he has the power to actually back all of these incredible claims. He's among one of the only 2 Sternritter who did not receive their powers directly from Yhwach, and he had only received a shrift from the Quincy leader as a recognition of his power. He is believed to be the heart of the Soul King, and a shrift, the miracle, grants him the ability to make the impossible possible. It's a power that is just as absurd as it actually sounds. It allows him to turn around the most unlikely scenarios into his favor, and this is done mainly through the conversion of damage into power. So it means that the greater the power that he goes up against and the damage that it causes him, it results in him becoming stronger and faster. Now this not only makes him completely unkillable, but it also makes him the most physically powerful character in the entire Bleach series. Despite having an amazing design and a fun personality, he has very little impact upon the overall narrative, and he actually serves as a springboard for the character development of others, because through his character we get to see Byakuya's Ika Senjinka, Toshiro Hitsugaya's perfected Bankai, as well as Kinpachi Zaraki's Bankai. So while he does lack the characterization of some of the other Sternritters that I've ranked above him, he still deserves a lot of recognition. And I hope that Gerard's character gets more of a role to play within the anime adaptation of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Hopefully some of his battles can be expanded upon, and it may be a stretch, but I hope that we get to learn a bit more about his backstory. Moving on to the number 4 spot, we have Lil Barrow, and he is another member of Yhwach's elite Sternritter called the Schutzstaffel. He is stated to be one of the first Quincy to have ever received power from Yhwach, and as such, he sees himself as Yhwach's greatest masterpiece. He possesses the shrift with the letter X, standing for the X-axis, and it's another one of those multifaceted broken abilities. Its activation is tied to his left eye, which he normally keeps closed, but when he does open it, all hell breaks loose. He not only completely becomes intangible, his gunshots turn into nigh unstoppable lines that uniformly pierce through anything that is aligned with the muzzle of his gun. But it doesn't just stop there. When he activates his holy form, all his other powers get dialed up to ridiculous levels. He becomes permanently intangible, so hurting him is completely out of the question. He also gains the ability to teleport and manipulate light, all while maintaining the physical form of a very biblically accurate angel. Due to his incredible power alone, he easily ranks among the top 5 Sternritters, similar to Gerard. But unfortunately, power isn't all that we're considering within this ranking list, because unfortunately the story doesn't delve very deep into Lil Barrow's character, and just like Gerard's character, he serves as a springboard to prop up the Shinigami, because through the character of Lil Barrow we get to learn a bit more about Shunsui's backstory as well as the history of Nanao's family. And this is why I've ranked Lil's character over Gerard, because it was through his fight where we got to learn a lot more about Shunsui and Nanao, thereby giving Lil Barrow a bit more of narrative impact than Gerard, who was only a means to really reveal power-ups. But all of this aside, Lil Barrow is still an incredibly cool character who I wish that we saw more more of, and I hope that the anime does actually showcase a bit more of him. But with all of this said, let's now talk about the top 3 Sternritters, starting off with the 3rd place, which goes to none other than Askin Naklevar. He's another one of the elite Sternritter called the Schutzstaffel, and to be honest, the top 3 could be reshuffled in any way, and it would still make a lot of sense. But for a number of reasons, Askin could have easily been number 1. He's definitely one of the funniest characters that Kubo has ever created, and he's a shining example of Kubo's ability to create extremely lovable characters without the need of giving them a backstory or any real elaboration on who they are outside of their immediate actions within the narrative. I mean, where do I even begin when it comes to discussing Askin's character? From his very charismatic personality to his extremely questionable loyalty to Yhwach, as well as his motivations for even having joined the Vandenreich in the first place. In addition to being incredibly interesting, Kubo has given him one of the most broken abilities in the entire series, as he possesses the letter D for his shrift, standing for the death dealing. This is an ability that gives him control over lethal doses, and he can raise or lower a person's resistance to any given substance, essentially giving him the ability to make anything and everything a fatal poison. In addition to this, he also gains an immunity to any poison that he takes high quantities of, and it's thanks to this that he's granted immunity to the abilities of his opponents. His powers just on their own are insane enough, but when they are paired up with his incredible endurance, which allows him to just power through the worst injuries, his abilities become even more deadly. And when he activates his holy form, it gives him access to multiple poison-based abilities, and some of these can quite literally instantly kill his opponents. In conclusion, Askin is a very fascinating character, and his powers are truly insane. Coming in at the number 2 spot is none other than our very own Uryu Ishida. Now, Uryu joins the Sternritter during the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, and he joins their ranks with the intention of avenging the death of his mother, who was killed by Yhwach, and we learn about this motive a bit later on in the story arc. So for a fair portion of the story, it seems as though he has actually betrayed his friends and has switched sides. But thanks to the numerous additions that were made by the anime, we also get a deep introspective look at what exactly made him consider this course of action in the first place. Now, this isn't the reason why he has made it into the number 2 spot of this ranking list, because after all, he is a character that we've known since chapter 33 of the story. We actually see Uryu grow from being a character with a deep and rather deserved hatred of Shinigami into somebody who isn't really the best of friends with the Shinigami, but he is still willing to work with them and to receive their help for the sake of the greater good. Throughout Bleach, Uryu has always had his reservations about the nature of the Soul Society, so seeing him make this choice to join the Sternritter and to fight against the Soul Society creates a very compelling storyline, and it's because it puts Uryu into somewhat of a moral quandary of whether he should stay on the side of his friends fighting for the organization, which has a deep-rooted hatred for him and his people, or whether he should follow the very rational desire to fight for his own people. He also serves as the foil to the leader of the Sternritter, Hashward, and in all honesty, these two characters have some incredible interactions within the final arc. But his character writing alone wouldn't be enough for him to grab this high position within this ranking list, as let's now focus on his powers and abilities. Now, while they're not depicted as being a major powerhouse within the story of the final arc, he does get a major power boost that definitely puts him up there within Bleach's rather crowded list of characters who have some pretty broken abilities. After he drinks Yhwach's blood and he awakens his full potential, he gains the power of the Antithesis. It's a shrift that allows him to reverse whatever has already happened between two designated targets. This power is so great that it has been stated to be the only one that can go head to head against Yhwach's equally as broken ability, the Almighty. I mean, after Yhwach, Uryu was the second Quincy who was granted the letter A as his shrift, which was enough of a hint that he was going to have a very incredible power. Now, before we talk about our number 1 Sternritter, let's go over the honourable mentions. These are characters who are really great in their own right, and they could have easily replaced any of the other characters in the lower rankings of this list, but they didn't actually make it into the top 5 for one reason or another. Now, the first of the honourable mentions is Sternritter H. Baz B. He is somebody who possesses flames so powerful that they could offset the flames of Yamamoto Shikai. He's a really great character in his own right, and his friendship and history with the leader of the Sternritter, Hashward, plays a pivotal role within this character's story. Bazby is followed by the frightening Asnod, who has the letter F as his shrift. He uses the power of fear to destroy his enemies, and he plays a very significant role in the development and growth of Byakuya and Rukia within the final arc, and he could have easily made it onto this list if he wasn't so outclassed in terms of power by his fellow Sternritter. Now, there is also Sternritter Y, Royd Lloyd, and he is actually somebody that we know very little about, since we've only seen him use his power to simulate Yhwach's appearance and memories in order to battle Yamamoto. His lack of character depth was what prevented him from making an appearance on this list. Now the final honourable mention goes to none other than the visionary Gremmy. I had heavily debated whether if I should add this character onto this list because of the insane power that he possesses, but after considering how little narrative impact he has upon the 1000-Year Blood War arc, aside from being the character who plays a springboard for Kinpachi's Shikai reveal, he doesn't have much more of a narrative impact in comparison to the other Sternritters who have stuck around for a bit more longer than he had, and in comparison there were some other Sternritters who served to springboard the Shinigami a bit better, like Gerard and Lil Barrow. And now we have finally reached the number 1 spot, which goes to one of my personal favourite Sternritter, Yhwach. He is the Grandmaster of the Vandenreich Empire and Yhwach's other half. He's a character that we are first introduced to within chapter 485 of the manga and in episode 2 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. He had first caught my eye due to his almost eerily cool and calm demeanour, and his stance had only ever wavered by matters that had concerned Yhwach's safety. The thing that really had won me over about his character was the story of his past with Baz B, and his relationship with Baz B ends up becoming a perfect parallel to Ichigo and Uryu's. He comes to terms with the weight of his own decisions that he has made after being inspired by Uryu, and this is what actually drives him to encourage Uryu to go and save his friends when he is dying at the end of the story arc. He is among one of the many tragic characters within Bleach, and I wouldn't be able to do justice to his character in this video alone. So he's definitely somebody who I want to do a full character analysis video on, where we break down all of the nuances of the growth of his character. So make sure you definitely look forward to character analysis on Yhwach coming soon. Aside from being possibly the best written Sternritter, he's also a top contender for being the strongest, because his Shrift the Balance is ironically one of the most unbalanced and broken abilities within the entire story of Bleach. It is no small feat to be up there in power in a world where abilities like the Almighty and Ichimonji exist. Yhwach's Shrift allows him to manipulate the concepts of fortune and misfortune, as he is able to swap out his misfortune with the fortune of others. He most commonly uses this to swap his injuries and wounds with his opponent who would be unscathed, so effectively he uses the balance to heal himself. But this alone isn't enough for him to earn the top spot within this ranking video. The even more broken aspect of his power allows him to inflict an equal amount of misfortune onto his opponents who have been fortunate enough to wound him. He is also able to reflect any misfortune that he experiences in equal amounts onto his enemies. Now this power can be used to also bypass his opponent's defenses, which he had used against Kangdu when he succeeded in blocking Yhwach's slash. The leader of the Sternritter had then converted his fortune in blocking the attack into misfortune, allowing him to bypass Kangdu's defenses and to kill him. This essentially makes him invincible and allows him to unleash unstoppable attacks. The balance actually serves as the hard counter to Uryu's antithesis, a power that's been touted as the only one that can counter the Almighty. Now after hearing all of this, you might think that on the days where he doesn't have this Shrift, fighting him would be easier, but this is nowhere near the case, because when he doesn't have access to the balance, he gains the powers of the Almighty, the universally accepted most broken ability within all of Bleach. Now this is possible because he is Yhwach's second half, so when Yhwach sleeps, his powers are exchanged with Yhwach's, granting him control over the Almighty. Now while he cannot use this power to its fullest potential like Yhwach can, it is still enough to reduce even the most powerful enemies to just petty annoyances. He strikes the perfect balance between absurd power and great character writing, and it's for this reason that Yhwach makes it onto the number 1 spot of this list. All in all, what did you think about the Sternritter as a whole? Do you agree with the decisions that I've made within this ranking list? Are there any characters that you felt should have been included here but they weren't? I would love to know all of your thoughts in the comments, and let me know your own personal rankings for the top 5 Sternritter. I can't wait to read about what all of you think, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.